Hi, everybody. We're at day 1487. 1487. I know I'm coming on late. We're going to burn the midnight oil. Let's see if everything is working. Okay, we're Team Fine Richard Halliday. Let me see if it's working. Can you hear me? Let me see if it's working. Testing. Okay, yeah. Sounds like it's working. All right. So we're getting bigger and bigger. More and more people are coming forward and giving us more and more information. And I think that this whole thing with the insurance really touched some nerves out there. I think people have been wronged. I think people understand the fraud going on out there that is really hurting the original purpose of insurance. Um, and, criminals have taken advantage. And to take advantage of insurance, you have to be, you know, um, you have to have some know how. You have to be a professional. So you can get in there. You have to have some training. And remember, Danae Katzen was saying that she was in insurance, and then we have other lawyers that we know that were in insurance, and we have other connected to the lawyers that are insurance consultants. So it's all kind of fitting together. And what do you have to commit the fraud? You have to have these professionals in place, right? You have to have access to people's personal information, the social security numbers, their history, their medical history, everything like that. So people, with connections with medical, and you have to have, you know, a connection with the chief medical examiner or a medical examiner, right? Because you have to get the death certificates, you have to get a certain kind of tampered with, or maybe not, but knowledge of cause and manner of death of certain people. There's and do we have that in Richard's case? That's connected to the Walmart case, right? Do we have those people in place that could carry out these professionals that the average person would think, why do they want to commit crimes? Isn't it 450,000 a year? Isn't that enough salary to live a nice corrupt free life um where you're being law abiding? Isn't that enough? And how much does lawyers make and everything? It's really concerning that it's never enough. They're never content, or they just have so many problems in their life that they have such a mess when it comes to their finances, or they require a certain status, a certain level of lifestyle that they require more than what they can make, and they're willing to um, be be corrupt. They're willing to join a criminal network, right? Because that's what this is. Because in order to do this kind of insurance fraud and everything, um, that is kind of coming out, um, you would have to belong to a group, a criminal group. And does Richard's case has a criminal group? Absolutely. A criminal group of professionals? Absolutely. A, a criminal group of professionals that, some of them are the rogue criminal group of the initial original response team, right? So, what do I mean by that? Well, and I've been mentioning several people, but we're going to go back a little bit to Leilani and let's talk about Leilani a little bit because Leilani Hart is, she's central. She's so central with Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, right? With Bliss Avenue, their connection. She's so central. With Bob Moore, I even call it Bob Moore's group because it's so central to understand the media's purpose, criminal purpose, and all of this. So, Bob Moore of El Paso Matters, um, that is totally connected to El Paso Community Foundation. That's very important to understand. And so let's look at Leilani again. Leilani, um, she confessed in her uh, FBI affidavit that she has some immigration problems, right? So she's, we talked to a witness that said she belongs to some kind of Samoan mob, right? Um, because of all of her legal problems that she was having in Hawaii. And one of her victims um, said she was even threatening about her Samoan mob would come, don't mess with her, right? She was protected back then. So she also was told by the judge that she had mental problems. And we know that through her husband saying she has mental problems, her children, Dallas saying she's crazy, um, her victim saying she's crazy. I mean, the judge said she needs to go have mental health treatment. So this is a mentally unwell person. Um, she, she is makes false allegations. I would almost say like borderline entrapment that we've heard. We've heard the victims say like she wants to put you in a position where then she can make false allegations of in sexual nature. So that's almost like an entrapment kind of thing to me, my opinion. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But this is what the witnesses have told us, that she is a harasser. She has a history of harassment. She, because of the mental health issues, right? And also because she's a confirmed convicted criminal, she can't buy a weapon. Okay, she can't buy a weapon. So that's very, very important in understanding what she did, how she did it, and just remember that she can't buy a weapon. So if she gets a weapon, she has to get it illegally, okay? Because according to my understanding, with her background and her record, she's not allowed to buy a weapon. Um, so when she got to El Paso, absolutely big part of the community because of her hula dancing and all of that. But her and her husband were very much part of Fort Bliss, very much part of the security world. Okay, the security world. She wanted a badge. We know this for sure. She wanted a badge. She wanted that uniform. She wanted the badge. Um, she had a personal relationship because she was in the military until 2016, I believe. And she worked for Clem Coward, that is Major General Clem Coward in Richard's case. The he's implicated in this. Okay, he's up to no good in this. Um, and for him to have a history with Leilani Hart, you're going to be like, what? They all have a history with Leilani Hart. Yeah, this is. We know that Leilani Hart is Mormon. Okay, that's very important in this. Um, because the common denominator and many of the individuals involved in Richard or suspected to be involved in Richard's murder case are Mormons. Um, and her, when she got to El Paso, um, they they have roots there. And so they're very involved in the security world. And she absolutely had a personal relationship with Director of Emergency Services, Thomas Cain. We know this. And it's so Thomas Cain had a very personal relationship with CYS director Ed Ogle. And absolutely, they both, in their security positions, um, had other jobs, which, I think this has got like a conflict of interest. But they worked teaching classes at Park University, where Leilani Hart was taking classes. Okay, so they know each other multiple ways. Also, DES Thomas Cain worked very closely with CID, a family member of Leilani Hart, Tavita Nusa, okay, with Marlon Soto, with Ron Steeg, right? He worked very closely with, and this is not that big of a group. And we know that there were leaks coming out of there to Hemasocha, right? So that connects that that, and we thought that that was CID, right? But this is a close group. Um, you know, they absolutely are in the security world, which is, just so frightening. Um, but that's how Leilani Hart, uh, on the 22nd of July, got her uh, notarized affidavit confession accepted by the CID and then referred to the FBI and got it accepted by the FBI and then got her number because she works closely, has personal relationships with her family member, with DES Thomas Cain, with CYS and Ogle. Um, they absolutely know each other. And also, she knows very well Jules Tugadon Chan. Security, health security. Who else is health security? Well, her husband, health. He knows all of them also. They're in the same, they have to work together. In any kind of emergency case or any kind of uh, security situation, health situation, they have to work together. They had to work together with the emergency intake center. They have to work together with the Walmart mass shooting. They have to work together uh, in all these things that happen on Fort Bliss. So Jules Tugadon Chan of course, and DES, Thomas Cain, and Ann Ogle, and Leilani Hart, and James Courtney Hart, Dallas Hart, um, and of course, Bob Moore of El Paso Matters, right? Because that's backed up with El Paso Community Foundation. And El Paso Community Foundation um, gets to act benevolent, gets to collect donations coming in when these emergencies happen, like the Walmart mass shooting victims fund, right? Very clear, for the unaccompanied migrant children. I can't tell you how many times we've donated, especially this time of year, to we have church programs that we belong to help out the disfranchised children that want to go to school or whatever. And you buy them backpacks and all this stuff, and or you get boxes and fill it full of things that they might need, from toothbrushes to little toys and everything, to give, to migrant children, to, there's all these, America is such a wonderful place, and it's very, very different from the rest of the world. And we get taken advantage of sometimes. And you can read it in Democracy in America by de Tocqueville, where he talks about why America is different. Is it because it's a democracy? No, it's because of the volunteer spirit that only can be found here. The tithing spirit that goes along with the volunteer spirit. We have a tithing spirit. You go to other countries, do they tithe to their church, to their congregation, we have a tithing spirit. We have, that candy striper spirit. Now they're trying to destroy that, but that's what set us apart from the rest of the world, was our volunteer spirit, which includes the tithing, the giving, the donating, right? And, so anytime there's a disaster, we want to come in and help. And you saw that, if you have seen it with the pictures of Richard, when they had the hurricane and he was down there helping to remove trees that had been, blown down and all of that, to clear roads and help out. And oh my gosh, that was huge, huge work that the men did. Um, so to take advantage, to be in insurance fraud, to be in security, um, do they have everything in place to do this? They do. They have a little criminal network. Now, are they doing that? Um, we suspect it. We suspect that they're doing that. And, 4 years in, why are they so fixated on Richard's case, right? And, when you have Park University ties, Park University ties so many things together. Um, and Bob Moore with El Paso Matters and El Paso Community Foundation, that ties things in so well. Why would he use Leilani Hart? Um, and this is something that people might know, or and I have to reveal, is when we were surrounded at the beginning by these same people, but they were like friendlies or whatever, and then they got unfriendly when we got too close. Um, Started figuring out their criminality. They had information about Richard that even my mom didn't know or remembered. Okay. So they had access. Now, why is that important? When we go back and we look at all of our screenshots, um, and the early on is that they had that information. We believe that they were already combing through his files before he was murdered. Okay, they were already checking him out before he was murdered. And they had a very good understanding of his history, better, in details, um, than members of our family that, we just don't go through the paperwork like that. Now, Rob and I knew it because we were very involved in the whole process, um, and knowing our son, right? But, and having to fill out all the paperwork, the mountains of paperwork. Um, but my mom didn't know it. And she was like, "What are they talking about? Who are they impersonating?" And I'm like, their sole purpose is to intimidate us, to harass us, to threaten us, and that's why they impersonate, because, you know, uh, and maybe I'm kind of speaking where you don't understand. They had information about Richard that nobody knew except for us. And so if they put out a certain name, right? Since Richard was adopted, if they put out a certain name, um, they know that nobody else knows that except for us. So their sole purpose has always been to shut us up, to harass us so much, and to let us know that they have access and that they've been combing through our personal information. That's abuse of power. That's so criminal. So they expose themselves, but they did it very early on. And that means that they had access to Richard's VA file, his file at the VA, which, is not crazy to say that, because James Courtney Hart, right there at the VA, has access to Richard's file, or at the CID combing through it. And it also revealed that Richard was whistleblowing, right? That, they were already focused on him. And then the other thing that it reveals is to us, because um, we know Richard wanted to be in the CID. We know that he was taking classes, that his classes were for criminal justice, right? That was going to be his major, was criminal justice. We know that. And so that would mean that he was right in the middle of Thomas Cain, because that's what Thomas Cain taught there at Park University, and Ann Ogle, because for criminal justice you have to have psychology. Um, and of course, the information that we received, the CID internship, which Richard would jump on that in a heartbeat. So that would put him right in the middle of Tavita Nusa, Thomas Cain, Ann Ogle, Leilani Hart, James Hart, and of course his platoon leader was Dallas Hart. And Jules Tuganon-Chan, who has a personal relationship with Leilani Hart and Dallas Hart. And, so this group, it would put him in the middle of this group. And that's not by accident. That's not by, coincidence. that the very group that is fixated on Richard Halliday, that must be, he must be haunting them at night, going, ooh, you might kill my body, but you will never kill my spirit. Um, yeah, I can see Richard absolutely doing that. Um, and, I wanted to say, I hope he's doing that. I hope he's haunting them. I hope he is. But, I don't want to go there. I don't want to say that. Um, so, so it's not a coincidence that the very people, hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm seeing everyone now. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for, yeah, justice and absolutely for Richard. God's blessings to you and your family and friends. Thank you so much. Did they make Richard the intern PI fall guy? Seems to me. Exposing all. uh, You know, Richard, Richard, okay, we have hard witness evidence that what was happening to the children at the emergency intake center was very bad. So bad that they couldn't even talk about it because, and this is from DES Thomas Cain. DES Thomas Cain is a former police officer, right? I think he's former colonel in the military. He is director of emergency services. And what was going on in the emergency intake center with unaccompanied minors. Now, anybody that has children absolutely is horrified by the term unaccompanied minors. Horrified. Because the one thing that minors need is somebody to take care of them. They need someone to take care of them, that love them, that want the best for them. Selfless service to our children. You know, I have grandchildren, no way. I can, no matter how tired I get, right? Because, when I have all 9 of them around, or right now 7 of them around, or, you can get very, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how tired. You've got to make sure that they are hydrated. You've got to make sure that they are fed. You've got to make sure that they are clean. You've got to make sure that you are raising them up in the way they should go so that when they get older, they shall not depart from it, meaning good manners, kindness, and they're not born with that. You have to train a child to be kind, to be helpful. So the term unaccompanied minor is a nightmare for a Gigi, for a grandmother, for a mother to leave my. I remember when we were adopting Robert and Richard, and we were in the court, and had to leave them in this, like, it was a hospital, but they turned it into like some kind of hotel, but it was former USSR, right? We don't want communism, y'all. I can tell you that right now. We do not want communism. And this wasn't it wasn't that old, but it was a former communist kind of hospital. And we had to leave them to go to the court. We came back. They were supposed to be taken care of, right? But it's not the same. I could explain their clothes and how, And I just looked at my husband. I said, I'm not leaving them ever again. Unaccompanied, no way. Who's going to protect them? Who's going to make sure they're dressed properly? Who's going to make sure that all their needs are met? These are our children. These are our sons. I'm not leaving them. And that's why, because we were given the option to go home for Christmas and come back because there was an appeals period, a little over a month, and it was through Christmas, through New Year's. And I said, absolutely. We brought them home January 15th. So, so for that whole few months before that, I stayed in Poland, and for the last month, I stayed there by myself, not even knowing how to speak Polish, but in that old, not it wasn't old, but a part. It was built during the CCCP, right, the communist time. Um, this hospital, and I stayed there. I stayed there for a little over a month. Um, and, because I was not going to leave them. Because the term unaccompanied minor is a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And Director of Emergency Services, Thomas Cain, let it happen. He let the nightmare happen in the emergency intake center. So did Ann Ogle. She let it happen. And we know for sure that we're telling the truth. And that means Jules Tuganon Chan let it happen. Because Thomas Cain admitted that what was going on at the emergency intake center with the children was so bad. Was so bad. So bad that you didn't have the words to describe it. You couldn't say it out loud. That you were shaken by it. You had anxiety. You were being haunted by what was happening. And I hope that every one of those missing children haunt him. Because that needed to be reported. But you see, his heart was hard like stone. Because he said on Team Find Richard Halliday's audio of him that Richard was a good meal for the coyotes. Now, you could be a real jerk out there and say something like that. But a former police officer, former officer in the military, and the director of emergency services on Fort Bliss, in his position, to say something like that is dehumanizing. This is a soldier. And also an indication that he was involved in the murder and cover-up of Richard. You can have anybody analyze that with a background on who Thomas Cain is, and they will say the same thing. This is indicative of someone that participated in the murder and cover-up of Richard, because they want to dehumanize him to protect their own psyche. To protect their own psyche. This is a professional. And we know that he was in business with this group. Okay. And that would include Leilani Hart. This group includes Leilani Hart. And what business were they doing? Well, those LLCs are coming in and we're checking. We're having to corroborate them. We're checking, and they've done, try to sanitize everything. But more and more people, they cannot sanitize people, right? People have memory. People have been wronged. Leilani has wronged a lot of people. This group has wronged a lot of people. And they've wronged a lot of children. A lot of children. And that's, the very thing that Richard was exposing was the trafficking, was the security problems on Fort Bliss, was the harassment. Is there a history of all of those with this group? Absolutely. That's their business. That's, and I don't mention FBI Jesus Nieto enough because he's part of this group. And what would drive them to do these horrible criminal networking kind of crimes, from trafficking to what would a group like this, what would drive them to do this kind of thing? Because I'm not making up, I'm not the one putting that story out there, the narrative out there, that 85,000 unaccompanied minors, which is a horror, um, are unaccounted for. That wasn't me. That was other concerned citizens that contacted Congress, and Congress put that in a congressional. So, and it wasn't me that connected Jules to Cain with the emergency intake center and the very fact that there was horrible things going on there. It wasn't me that connected him to that. He himself connected himself to that he had leadership position in that, working with, of course, Thomas Cain. So if Thomas Cain can see it and express it, that horrible things are going on there, then don't tell me that Jules Cain didn't understand what was going on. That Ann Ogle, who was CYS, Child Youth Services on Fort Bliss, in charge of Child Youth Services. And this is part of their crime is they're supposed to be giving us services, honest service for their state and federal funds. And I think they have failed miserably, which led to the retaliation and the murder and the cover-up of our son Richard Halliday. Because he was the one that did report it, that did report the crimes that were going on. And where are those to stand shoulder to shoulder with him on that one? Because let me tell you, you have Leilani Hart, who for over a decade, we have documented evidence that that this whole child abuse, sexual abuse, has been going on for a long time. More than a decade. Longer than that. And for years went by before she put in this affidavit that she had notarized, about a 7-year-old being sexually assaulted in her master bedroom by multiple members of the household. She didn't report that. So you've got Thomas Cain, who is connected to Leilani Hart very personally, and also through Park University, not reporting what's going on at the emergency intake. You have Leilani Hart not reporting what's going on in her house, the child pornography, the incest, the child sexual assault, the illegal weapons purchasing, right? She's not reporting it. Not in a timely fashion. She's letting years go by. Not until July 22nd of 2020. So you have the failure of security. You have Jules saying, "Oh no, I just did the best job I could do." No, you didn't. Because you didn't report what was going on in the emergency intake center. And then you ran a false story about the whistleblower that did. And then instead of supporting the Gold Star family, you went over there to rub shoulders with the prime suspects in the murder and cover up, the retaliation, the murder, and the cover up of Fort Bliss soldier whistleblower Richard Halliday. So that's indicative that you're right there with Thomas Cain involved in the capital murder case of our son. That's what that shows. And I didn't bring him in. He came in early 2023, 20. I have to look at that screenshot again. Before we even knew who he was part of the criminal group with Saboteur, right? And Bob Moore. And so with all of this happening, you have Bob Moore using Leilani Hart, the prime suspect in the murder and cover-up of Richard, as a source to retaliate against a witness in our case. And people asked questions yesterday about that, about the story that Bob Moore ran featuring Leilani Hart's accusations and everything, where she was just totally lying. And how do we know that she was lying? Because number one, the forensics was never done because there was never a report. There was never a report to the El Paso Police Department. There's not any kind of screenshots of her texting anybody for help. There's no 911 call. There's no going over to a neighbor and saying, "Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened." She never went to a neighbor. She never. There was nothing. Right? It was all a lie. And, if she discharged that weapon, then how did she get that weapon? If she did it herself, because it's a lie, but, we don't know any forensics because the law enforcement were never called. So, and then the weapons don't match up. There's so many other holes to layer upon layer to prove that it was a lie. And, this is so far back. We're just going, what is going on here? And we're combing through it. And now, we have a confidence about us because of other information that has come in about the insurances, about the LLCs, because we didn't even focus on the LLCs and how they connect all these people together. and make a conflict of interest, a financial conflict of interest, right? Because they have, anybody that started a business knows amount of time and work that goes into it, and the money that goes into it, and then you're getting it going, and a lot of us are a little pay more attention to it than Jules took it on Chan. When you have one that becomes successful, like FitFem El Paso LLC, you would make sure you hold on to that. You're not going to create like a McDonald's and then forfeit your LLC. I don't think McDonald, well, whatever. But you're not going to create a successful business, and then forfeit your LLC. You're not going to do that. You're going to make sure every I is dot, every T is crossed, that you are okay, so that you can keep your little golden goose, right? I mean, the goose that lays the golden egg. So, but he didn't do that. And that means that there's some fraud there. That's what that meant to us. There is something that they're trying to hide. And does he have a history of trying to hide? Yes, he does. He wanted to stay anonymous. He's not being honest about anything. When it comes to Richard Halliday's case. And, this, I think FitFam LLC is just, another example of the systemic fraud that's going on in Richard's case. A systemic fraud that's going on in Richard's case, absolutely discrediting Bob Moore and El Paso Matters. Disgrace, a disgrace, discredited Bob Moore of El Paso Matters by using convicted criminal Leilani Hart that has a mental health condition or mental health problems, that, is a bully, is up to no good, has lots of personal relationships because she's in the adult entertainment business, lots of LLCs, oh, trying to complain about people and get people in trouble and just make life hell for people. It's like, wow. And she's a prime suspect in the murder case of our son. Yeah. So, I mean, what is the motive to get even? Well, Richard is a whistleblower, and is he threatening the goose that lays the golden egg? Well, would that be the trafficking? Would that be the insurance fraud? Would that be, because let me tell you this, Leilani Hart has a criminal record of insurance fraud. Okay? Leilani Hart has a criminal record of insurance fraud. So, one that involved one example, just to tell you, like one of her Mormon congregants Uh, she accused with a child. I'm trying to remember the whole thing, and I hope I get it right. But she wrongly accused a child of like stealing um, jewelry. I think it was jewelry. Maybe it was something else, something precious. And she tried to get insurance money, but she sent a picture that was time dated after the fact that she said it was stolen. So she took a picture of the jewelry, said it was stolen, but she had it. I mean, it was just and fortunately, anyway, I don't know if it was jewelry totally, but the point is she has a history, and more than that, of insurance fraud. So is she capable of doing insurance fraud? Yes. Is she capable of harassing, intimidating, threatening? She has a history of it. Does she have a business mind? Does she have LLCs? Does she comes from a history of business mind established in El Paso? Yes. You know that through people that have talked to her online, right? And left messages. Um, there's not, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck. And of course, the law enforcement have to do their investigation. Okay, they've done their investigation, y'all. We're at 4 years. It's under investigation. It's under investigation. It's under investigations. Let's have some action now with accountability. You can only ask for investigation for so long. They've already investigated. They already had Richard's. They already knew Richard was murdered. They already knew he was unjustly retaliated against. They knew that this was a cover up. They knew that people were tampering with his file. They knew it because on a federal level, they told us so. They told us so. We have it on record. So Bob Moore knows that Richard's file was tampered with. He knows that Leilani Hart is an unreliable source, that she has all of these problems, right? Because she looks like a duck, she acts like a duck, she quacks like a duck, she's a duck. He can't say she's a reliable source because she's not. And when you're in the business that Bob Moore is in, you can't use unreliable sources because you're writing history. You're writing articles that can be used in a court of law to move policy, change policy, establish policy. So when you're putting down fake and false and lies, you're messing with society, you're messing with laws, you're messing with case laws, you're messing with policies. It's very serious, and those ramifications are not just for Richard's case, but it's for all of El Paso, and it probably is broader than that because anything that happens to El Paso affects then Juarez, Mexico. So Richard's case is an international capital murder case, and we know that. Let's see what. Regardless of who fired, someone should investigate. Consider her involvement. No one did, right? No one did. I mean, let me tell you, if it was real, if it wasn't a lie, there would be other arrests. I mean, I think they might. I mean, we've done so many letters on this, complaints, criminal complaints, and on this whole thing with Richard. And you know, and I've been calling her out on her confession. Why isn't she arrested? Right? Why isn't she arrested? Because no matter what in the investigation, whether she lied to law enforcement, that's an arrestable offense, or that she failed to timely report the sexual assault of a 7-year-old in her master bedroom, that's an arrestable offense. Why isn't she arrested? Why haven't we gotten a report on how that is connected with Richard's case? Because it's absolutely connected, because she was tampering with the files. She was tampering with the files, and they know it. Because she was telling everybody. She was telling everybody she was doing it, and we had proof, because who's she with? Hema Sabator, Hema Socho, right? She's with her. And we were getting leaked information. And at the very first Dog and Pony Show, Task Force Find Richard Halliday without an op board, without a uniform, we went in there and we reported it to 15 plus agencies that there was something going on in the CID, that there was some kind of leak. And you should have seen Marlon Soto. He was like going up, we're like, what's going on here? Oh, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. That implicates Marlon Soto. And then when you find out that Leilani Hart's family member that she's giving sexual favors to is CID agent Tavita Nusa, and then, that office is small, and you think, oh my gosh, CID intern Richard is in there. Yeah. Um, that whole fake story is nothing compared to her confession that was notarized and accepted by the FBI. You're talking about incest, which includes a active duty soldier, officer. You're talking about a dependent of a soldier, a 7-year-old, being sexually assaulted. Do you understand what that means? By multiple members of her household in her master bedroom. You're talking about illegal weapons purchasing. You're talking about being in possession of child pornography. You're talking about bodily threats or life threats. You're talking about being in this country illegally or with immigration problems. Where is the arrest? Where are the results from the investigation on that one? You have fraternization because she's having sexual relations with her family member when he's married and part of the CID, and she's married. That the fake story is absolutely, there is no doubt in my mind that the fake story that Bob Moore posted and used Leilani Hart is a distraction to what's really going on at the emergency intake center then, and what was really going on in the Hart family that had Hart childcare LLC. You know, let's focus on the real issue here. They've not wanted to get it out there that Dallas Hart was Richard's platoon leader. That Dallas Hart is the son of a convicted criminal, a confirmed convicted criminal that was way up to no good, and that his father has access to people's personal files and is being accused of incest. It's like these distractions are put so that and there's Richard. Of course he's reporting. He's reporting. How much of that was he reporting? And why isn't CPS doing a press conference about Richard Halliday's reports? Why isn't the FBI doing a press conference of Richard Halliday's reports? Why isn't the White House doing a press conference about Richard Halliday's reports there at the border in Borderland, right? In Borderland. Where is CID doing those? Where is the command from Fort Bliss giving a press conference? There's so much to report here. And, what is Bob Moore reporting? A lie. A lie to distract everybody, to hypnotize. Google eyes, right? Oh my gosh, this happened. No, it didn't happen. It's fake. If they lie to us about the moon, they're going to lie. Leilani Hart's going to lie in that story because she's a known liar. She's a known liar. And she has absolute connections with Thomas Cain, with Ann Ogle, with Jules Tuganon-Chan, with James Courtney Hart, with Dallas Hart, with Bob Moore. And, I haven't even mentioned Bill Hicks in all of this, but absolutely Bill Hicks and more. And the common denominator, and you can just look at professionals. You want the professionals. That's who's, needed to do what they've done, which I think is what Richard was calling them out for. So they've been involved in criminal activity for a long time, and we're calling them out. And, it needs to be sorted. It needs to be sorted from distractions to reality. And no matter what happens, Leilani Hart has done so many crimes again, with so many others that, it's time for accountability. It's time for accountability. And the very person, okay, so the prime suspect is being used to retaliate against a witness in the case. That's what happened. And don't forget, Leilani Hart has connections to Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia of Bliss Avenue. And that Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, with her ex-husband, Alexander Gerhardt Hoffman, has ties to El Paso Community Foundation. which is Bob Moore's El Paso Matters. So, of course, they're protecting their interests, in my opinion. El Paso Community Foundation is using El Paso Matters, the editor, Bob Moore, to protect their interests. And to protect their interests, they have to use Leilani Hart because they're connected. I don't think they're strangers at all. In her house, as she claims, why forensics need to be done in my, but she never, look, she never called anybody. She never called anybody. They never, you would think you would make sure that they come in and test everything. And I think it's because they would see she's not legally allowed to buy a weapon. So if she had a weapon that matched, because the person that she alleges did that doesn't even have a weapon like that. So if she has a weapon like that, then if they find out that that's her weapon, then she has an illegal weapon because she's not allowed to buy a weapon. Yeah. Or they just don't care to investigate. She's evil. She should be arrested for failing to protect children, in my opinion. Yeah. And she even had Hart childcare. And that's they want to dehumanize, right? The children, the migrant children, they want to dehumanize them. And they could be up to, oh, they're 17. I don't care. That's a minor. 16. That's a minor. Why are they unaccompanied? I don't want my 16-year-old, 17-year-old to be unaccompanied, coming across a border and into a new country and into an emergency intake center where horrible things were going on. It's so bad. And let me tell you, I believe that Richard had access through Park University, to Thomas Cain. And if Thomas Cain is saying it's so bad, we can't even talk about it, and then all of a sudden I hear it from Richard's mouth, it's so bad, I can't talk about it. What is that? Yeah. So, yeah, it's time. We've had investigations, and there are investigations going on right now at a state and federal level. We've have confirmation that there is ongoing state and federal investigations going on. But let me tell you, with my little bit, and I should not say but Team Find Richard Halliday's little bit of resources, we are making the connection between Bill Hicks and Ernest Christopher Grant and more stuff in that, and the connection between Jules Tuganan-Chan and Thomas Cain and Bob Moore and Leilani Hart and James Hart and Dallas Hart and Jonathan Abreese. I haven't mentioned him today, and of course the chief medical examiner, and that would lead you to Veronica Escobar, and then to Bill. If we can make these connections, then they've had this connection. They've had them. They know who's who. And so the investigation has already been conducted, y'all. Just like Richard's murder was already done. They already had his remains. They already did the autopsies. They already had the death certificate, or an attempt at a death certificate. Um, they already had all that. I believe that. They already had their forensics on Richard, the DNA. They already had that. And they committed huge fraud. Huge fraud. And, we're just collecting more and more and more evidence and turning it in, more and more evidence. But the investigation is already, it's done. And didn't Adal Baim say that? It's done. It's over with. You can take down the flyers. We found them. It's over. Right? And so it's time for accountability. The investigation is over with. We have enough. Now it's time for accountability. And the accountability in a capital murder case would include the lethal injection. And that would be fitting. For the level of crime in this case, that would be fitting. In my opinion. So, I don't think that anybody wants to be caught up in being an accomplice in this. And I worry about some people that I met in this, and they should come forward. They should come forward. Because the LLCs, they show names, they show addresses, they show, look, Team Find Richard Halliday found out that Jules Tuganon Chan was FitFam El Paso LLC. There were multiple articles saying, who are these people? We don't know who they are. They're Mr. X. They're anonymous. We can't figure out who they are. Who are they? Who are they? We figured out who they were. The truth comes up. And I've said this as an analogy from living in Ireland. The stones of Ireland rise up to the top. And the truth comes up. You can't stop it. And people have to confess. Now, I'm not asking anyone to confess. I'm saying it as a statement. Right? I'm saying it as a statement that our human nature is driven to confess. We can't be healthy. We can't move on in life. Right? We in a healthy way without confession. That's why you have in Sigmund Freud's couch. People have to come in and let it out. And what was his purpose? To get rid of a sacrament. And what was that sacrament? Confession. Confession. Which is reconnecting with God. Right? That's what that is. It's connecting with God. It's making yourself right with God. And Sigmund Freud wanted to get rid of that sacrament. That's why it's so important for people to read Henry VIII. Henry VIII. Henry VIII, Defense of the Sacraments. It's important for our own health. And when you see that water has memory, that water is, we don't even understand what water is. And that people want to put so many qualifications on baptism, right? Which is a sacrament. And it's like, really? I don't think any of us really deserve the blessings of the sacrament of baptism, right? It's a gift. It's nothing we can do, no prayer we can say, nothing we can do. It's a total gift, right? So there's no requirements on you have to be a certain age or you have to whatever, right? It's just a gift. And you just have to be willing to do it. That's about it, right? You just have to be willing, like, baptize me in the name of God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost. That's it. And we can't even explain the power behind it, but we know it is huge, bigger than what we even can imagine. And that's like this confession thing. And they want to replace that health. They want to make us sick. They want to take away our blessings. You know, and that whole ordination thing, the vote, where do you think votes came from? From the sacrament of ordination. And they don't even want to call that a sacrament anymore, right? Oh no, there's just two sacrament, they just get rid of, inch them away. But wait a minute, the laying on of hands, the voting, the process of that's a sacrament. It's a blessing to society. And so going back to confession, I can go through all the different sacraments, and I don't claim to be, a professor or anything like that, and just kind of what I've learned in my family. But we cannot be healthy unless we, what would you call it? When your body aches, when your body has to confess, right? We have to give in to that, and then the truth comes out. And that's why truth comes out. Leilani Hart had to confess. And she even had it notarized, so because she was a known liar. And she was like, this time I'm not lying. I'm having it notarized. And that's what I'm talking about. More and more people are coming forward because the truth is coming out. They have to confess, or being driven to confess. And that's why we're learning about this insurance. That's why we're learning about the LLCs. That's why we're learning. And, it's, and we keep telling people, so one day it's just going to all break, because God's timing is perfect. And when is that going to happen? I don't know. So until then, I'm going to tell people, because there's a lot of people that I met, and they're on the wrong side of this. They don't want to be on the wrong side of an international capital murder case, whether they get away with their manipulations or not. They don't want to be on the wrong side of this. So, and our intention, my husband says, make sure you tell him what we're trying to do here, what we're trying to do with FitFem El Paso, what we're trying to do. We want our son's remains. We want the record straight. right? We want the record accurate. And we want those that did this horrible, brutal, it's a brutal crime, a brutal murder, held accountable. That's what we want. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Thanks for sticking with us for so late. And please share. Thank you. Bye bye.